Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ethan, and today we're going to be talking about Invincible Season 3. And it hasn't fully come out yet, but I do want to talk about episodes as they're coming out and the ones that have come out now. So, without further ado. Okay, so again, I will be looking at my notes because there's a lot of stuff that I need to make sure I cover and get correct. So sorry if I'm looking at my computer a lot, but my bad. So Invincible came out in 2021 as a TV show, and it's been coming out ever since then. But it's actually based off a comic that's been coming out between 2003 and 2018. So it's actually done coming out. But the TV show has been rolling out every so often, and it's been so much fun to watch. I have loved seeing the characters grow. I've loved seeing the story. I have loved just the themes that they discuss. The writers are phenomenal. The director is phenomenal. I have a lot of really good things to say. However, Season 3 hasn't quite delivered as well as it should have, and I'm here to talk about why in just one sec. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys to subscribe down below if you like the content that you are seeing. I would also ask that you guys like this video so that it can get suggested for other people, and so that I know that you guys like this content. Also, more importantly than both of those two things, I would love if you guys could leave a comment down below. I want you guys to engage with culture. I want you guys to be thoughtful in this. So part of it is I'd love for you guys to share your thoughts down below. Things you agreed with, things you disagreed with, things that you'd like to see change, things that you have seen in the show that have been good, maybe something you want to praise. I want to read them. I want to see them. So please drop a comment down below. I really appreciate it, guys. And no more said, let's get right into the content. So Season 3 has been great. However, there have been quite a few issues, and they've kind of been happening ever since Season 2, so I'm hoping that the show is still going in a good direction, but I'm really not quite sure at this point. So here's what I have seen so far. I remember Season 1 coming out in 2021. My brother actually suggested that I watch it. He was super excited about the show, so I only heard about it from him. Thank the Lord. So good to see that. And I watched the show. It's on Amazon Prime. I watched it. I loved it. I loved seeing the characters grow. I loved seeing the storyline. Mark Grayson, who's the main character of the show, who is played by Yeun, he's phenomenal. He does such a great job, and I've really loved seeing his character grow throughout all 3 seasons. He's really wrestled through quite a few hard, grungy things, and it's been really cool to see his growth. I have loved Nolan Grayson, who's the dad. He has a lot of really interesting character issues that he's trying to work out, and he's trying to wrestle between his ideological lines and his family, and that has just been phenomenal. I really loved the culmination of Season 1, Episode 8, when him and Mark were fighting. It was just such a good scene. I remember walking away being like, oh my gosh, that was so good. I wish that, I wish that shows were more like this, and yeah, that it was actually more of a common thing to see, but I think they just did such a good job about introducing the characters, about growing them, about putting conflict where it should, and about growing those relationships, and at the end, it just hit so hard. You know that the characters have been through so much. You just feel for them. Your heart is just stirred. I mean, I would call this beautiful art. This is art. It's not super clean art. It definitely is full of its, sex, nudity, language, all this terrible stuff, but that just makes it more real. And honestly, I think that's the reason that people like it and why I like it, is because it doesn't try to sugarcoat anything. It doesn't try to paint a picture of this beautiful superhero universe where everything works out in the end and plot armor is just so abundant. It's real. And honestly, I don't like the fact that there has been some plot armor in Season 3 towards some of the characters. And yeah, that just wasn't a theme in Season 1 and Season 2. I wish that they would have just, stayed consistent with the themes that they have been pushing ever since Season 1. But mainly, it's real, it's unpolished, that's reflected everywhere, and it's emotional. It stirs you. It really does, and it makes you feel something. I think it's beautiful. I think it's totally worth watching. But there have been some problems with Season 3, so I want to get into those, but before I do that, I just want to kind of explain the thought process of the show from what I have seen and see if that can maybe explain why some things are happening in Season 3, as they have been. So one of the major themes of this whole show is the difference between black and white, I guess, characters per se. Basically, there's this moral gray line that everyone is trying to walk, and as a superhero, you can either be in the black or the whites, either the bad or the good. that's just how superhero movies tend to be portrayed. There's either a good character or a bad character, and those two are against each other, and they fight. I think that we are honestly made to love that type of story. But this show kind of goes against that narrative, and it actually is making the point that life is not so black and white, that it is gray. People are not necessarily good or bad, they are just people who make decisions that are either one or the other to a varying degree, and they're just trying to live their life. They're just trying to do the next best thing to better the world. Like a really good example is Cecil. Cecil runs the superhero agency. I don't really know exactly what it's called. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's running this agency and has to make decisions on the daily that are very morally gray, if not evil, to be honest. Definitely not morally there. And Mark really struggled with that and couldn't come to grips with that. So they ended up separating. And yeah, Cecil would make the point, he used to be like Mark, where he wanted to be on the good side, but he realized at some point that life doesn't allow you to, and that you have to try to walk that gray line and just do the next best thing that makes sense. And I think that's such a good analogy for life. This show just tends to reflect everything in life as we experience it. Life is not super clean. It's messy. It's full of so many gray things. We're making decisions on the daily that could be seen as either good or evil. It's up to debate. And I think this show just reflects culture as it is. So that's my theory as to why so many people like it and why I like it. I think there's probably more there. A lot of it is character development. A lot of it is relatability with the characters. But I think people just like seeing something real for once. We've seen a lot of sugar-coated things. This is just real. So then season 2 came out, and it was promising at first. There was a lot of really good developments between Mark and Nolan as they confronted one another again. There was more developments in the Mark and Amber relationship, which personally never was super excited about that. I didn't really care for it, but to each their own. It's over now, so I'm chilling. And there was a couple of other interesting things with Oliver and with Debbie's relationship and Cecil and the morally gray things that he was doing, and they were wrestling through a lot of those. And yeah, it looked promising on the outside. However, as the season progressed, you could just tell that the pace of the whole show was kind of off. They would be on one storyline, and then they would jump over to another, and then those two would kind of intersect, but not really. And then, we'd fly through this other story that was happening, and then, oh, this thing happened. And yeah, it just wasn't super well organized. And again, this show is meant to be unpolished. That is the whole point. You see that in the animation style, you see that in the characters, time and time again, this show is meant to be real. However, I think they took that a little too far, maybe tried to lean into that a little bit too much, and I don't know, the result was just an unorganized show that wasn't super watchable, I guess, and maybe that's a little dramatic, but I do think season 2 needed a little more polishing in order to be presentable on Amazon Prime to an audience, which, it is okay. People will be okay. I think people will recover from season 2. And I was really hoping that the reviews from season 2 would show the producers and the directors that they need to change some things about the way that they approach season 3. However, they didn't really listen to everyone's reviews and everyone's comments on season 2, because season 3 has kind of had the same problem, if not a little bit more. So there is a really good quote that I want to read from Tom's Guide. It talks about as Mark is wrestling with his morals and has to come head to head with those in some situations. So a really good thing about season 3 is, as I'm quoting, season 3 is playing into the season's emphasis on deeper character development. These battle lines are also being drawn on ideological lines. This quote really stuck out to me because as I was doing my research on this show and just what people are saying, this kept coming up, a couple themes in this. So the first line, they emphasize deep character development. This is true. You become very emotionally invested in the characters' lives. You really want to see them succeed, and a lot of them fail, time and time again. That is just reality. That is real, and I like that. It's hard to watch a character fail sometimes, but that is just how people work. And I think that reflects society. So it reflects humanity in a way that a lot of other shows don't. So I really appreciate that. But the second line was really interesting. These battle lines are also being drawn on ideological lines. And a lot of this show is ideology. A lot of it is what do you believe and how does that influence what decisions you make? Especially Mark and Cecil as they confront each other. That's the theme of their relationship, is like, what does one person think compared to the other, and do those two things intersect? Obviously they do not, because now they're not working with one another. I think that's going to be more reflected throughout the whole show as Mark is wrestling through his morals a little bit more. I'm honestly surprised that they haven't leaned into that more ever since the Mark and Cecil fight. It seems like Mark has become kind of stagnant in his thinking and we haven't seen his thoughts. It hasn't been real. I think they've been flying through that. So that's been a bit of a bummer. And I hope that that changes soon. I hope that we see the realness of each character, that we really dive into it. And that'll make a good show as long as they would do that. Which leads me into the things I think the show needs to do if they're going to succeed for the future and really just draw in audiences. So the first one that I wrote down is they need to lean into the realness of the show even more than they have already. Season 1 was phenomenal, blew the audience away. Season 2, not super organized, still pretty real, but not exactly on task. It didn't really follow a plot line super well. So the culmination episode, the last one of season 2, just didn't really hit as well as season 1 did. And season 3, I'm worried that they're along the same path already, that they are going to follow the same trajectory as season 2. So if they want to see success, they really need to lean into how real each character is as it's being portrayed to the audience. So I want to see more of Mark's thoughts. I want to see Eve and Mark struggling through something instead of just being all, happy, they're in love. Like, as much as the honeymoon period of dating is real, I do want to see some conflict. I do want to see them wrestle through things, but I want to see them win. I don't want to see them just wrestle and then stop dating. I want to see them win. And yeah, the emotional connection with the audience is super important. Honestly, most of film is just building an emotional connection with people. So I hope that the characters continue to develop, that relationships continue to, bend, form, twist, and eventually the culmination episode will just be the best culmination of the entire series. We will see if that happens. Second, this is something that I needed to have brought up earlier, but I didn't, so I'm bringing it up now. There's a lot of political ideology in this show. Now, sometimes that's okay. However, I want to see art for the beauty that it is. I don't want to see art just because it's propaganda. And sometimes it feels like propaganda. Like there was a scene in one of the episodes where there were two gay criminals, and it was talking about it was like a silent montage talking about their path and how they got into crime and how they were trying to get out of it, but they just couldn't because of financial desperation, and they were driven back into crime and back into jail. And I think it was supposed to be some political commentary on, like, don't judge a person by their actions, judge a person by their character. And these people didn't want to, but they had to in order to survive and get off the streets. Which, to a degree, I agree with that, but it didn't really play into the plot at all, and honestly, I still am confused to this day why they threw in that scene. So it's stuff like that where I get that they want to make a point, they want to drive their thoughts and put their thoughts and what they're passionate about into the film, but it needs to make sense in the grand scheme of characters and story. So if they're not doing that, it's honestly, it stopped becoming art, and it began becoming propaganda. So I hope that they can keep their political views out of this, or if they do, tie it into the story so where it makes sense. That is all we're asking. We have seen so many celebrities and movies that have gotten too political too fast and have just fallen off the face of the earth because no one wants to hear political propaganda in art, honestly. And the final thing that I hope that they can figure out is the pacing and a unique story that really speaks to the audience. I know that's hard. I've tried making films in the past. Honestly, making YouTube videos is the same problem. It's hard to figure out the pacing. It's hard to figure out, what is uniqueness, what is actually going to, what is going to connect well with the audience. And yeah, so far the story has been pretty rough. Like, again, it's not supposed to be polished. It's supposed to be real, but I think that they need to make it more real, but make sure that their storyline makes sense. So it's like keep the characters unpolished, but make sure that the storyline is polished. So I know that's a hard line, and that's a big ask of this TV show, but I hope that they can find some balance between that so that it's still enjoyable to watch and is where the audience is able to, like, track and understand what is happening throughout the whole season. So regardless of where season 3 ends up, I think you guys should definitely go watch it. It's totally worth watching. Again, my goal with this channel is that I can inform people and inform myself on what is worth watching in 2025 and beyond. I want to be more engaged with culture. I want to lean into that, and I hope that you guys found something here to be helpful as you go out and watch season 3 and the episodes that are continuing to come out. Now, before we go, I want to go ahead and give my ranking of where season 3 is at so far. And I'm using a non-traditional approach to the ranking scale because I think that a lot of ranking scales are kind of rudimentary. So I'm going to use 3 categories. 1, the viewer experience, 2, quality, and 3, an art ranking, which you will see in just 1 minute. So for the viewer experience, I give that a solid 6. And this is because I think you will walk away from it feeling good. You will feel the emotion of the story. It's totally worth watching. But I do think that it doesn't always land, and some of the episodes are filler episodes. So take that with a grain of salt, but I do think that your experience will be good. It's still worth watching, but it has become a little hit or miss for episodes recently. As far as quality goes, I would also give it a 6 because I think it's still a very high quality story and high quality characters. However, the animation and the storyline as it stands isn't super great and hasn't been doing great for a little while. So also I would give that a 6. And then as far as the art ranking goes, I would give it, well, actually, I'm not going to give it a number. I got ahead of myself there. I'm going to compare it to a famous work of art. Why? Because I want to, because I think it's funny. So I would compare this show to Guernica by Picasso because it is a very ugly painting and shows the realities of war and death pretty gruesomely. It's definitely not something you go hang in your house because it's pretty or anything. However, it does show the realities of life very clearly, and I think that that is admirable. And it's still art because it's real. And that is exactly what Invincible Season 3 and honestly all the seasons have been expressing for a while. So sorry if you hear any background music in the background. There is an organ player back there. I can't really help that. It'd be great if I could upgrade my film studio, but it is what it is. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. This has been great. I have enjoyed discussing Invincible Season 3, and I cannot wait to see the rest of it. If you like this, please like this video and comment down below with what you guys thought. Good things, bad things, other things you want to add, whatever it is. I'm very excited to go down there and read those. But again, the whole goal of this channel is to be a more thoughtful movie goer. So if you also have this passion, please follow this content. There will be more coming out like this. My name is Ethan, and stay thoughtful. See you in the next one.